Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory Nikke video. This review video is all about the strengths and weaknesses of Rei and Asuka, both as a pair and individually. Mari will have her own separate video, so subscribe if you want to see that. This will be partly a raid guide, but generally a squad and build guide review for Asuka and Rei. Okay, so Asuka's skills. Asuka is probably the strongest of the two in her most ideal scenario, and Rei will be more universally useful, but there's a lot more to it than that. Let's take a quick look at the text of both of their skills. Asuka's skill 1 activates at the beginning of the battle, and damage to shields goes up by a huge 600%. This is obviously good against anything with a shield, but this is particularly notable for the Eva raid boss because at the beginning of the fight it has a shield that must be destroyed before you can do any damage to the actual boss, and it will eat up quite a bit of your damage without having this ability in your squad, or at least pierce damage. Also, it increases her attack by 97% for 25 seconds when she gets healed. This is really strong buff that can have nearly 100% uptime. Skill 2 activates when entering full burst and when a shield is applied. Strong elemental damage goes up by 30% for 10 seconds. It also buffs all fire allies with core damage up 60% for 10 seconds. This is an extremely potent skill in the right scenario. It can push Asuka's individual damage as well as the whole team's damage quite a bit, but obviously if the enemy doesn't have a core or if you don't have a fire team, this doesn't do much. Her burst gives her pierce for 25 seconds and attack damage up 150% for 10 seconds. Obviously, this is a really strong buff. I mean, all of her skills honestly are pretty strong. She also recovers 3% of damage for 10 seconds. This tops up her HP almost every time she uses it, and not only that, it activates her skill 1 buff even if you don't have another healer. This can make her a pseudo tank because a lot of bosses will only target the highest attack unit, and she will just heal herself without needing any help. Furthermore, it increases her hit rate by 100%. I can't emphasize enough how big of a game changer this part is. Asuka has an abysmal hit rate normally. Even if you have a hit rate up overload line, it doesn't really do much. Honestly, I think the only unit that is more spray and pray is Shifty from the April Fool's event, so her burst really helps get those core hits, and massive double damage from piercing. Asuka's burst is the highest priority for investment, but all of her skills are fairly equal. Now let's take a look at Rei's skills. Rei is both the same and dissimilar to Asuka in a few meaningful ways. Her skill 1 activates after landing 100 normal attacks, which will happen in a matter of seconds with her high rate of fire. It buffs strong elemental damage by 30% for 3 seconds. It also hits the enemy with the highest attack for 112% of final attack as damage. This is a powerful attack that even when not fighting wind enemies, but obviously is even better when you are fighting wind enemies. Skill 2 activates at the start of the battle and increases damage to shields by 700%. Just like Asuka, this makes her invaluable against the Eva raid boss and should be useful in the future against bosses that put up shields. And this is an even bigger buff than Asuka's. When entering full burst, all fire code allies also get 25% of Rei's attack for 10 seconds. This is super strong with multiple fire DPS units, but she will buff herself either way. Skill 2 is probably the lowest priority for investment, but honestly, kind of like Asuka, all of them are pretty equal. Her burst gives a shield to all fire allies equal to 13% of Rei's final max HP for 10 seconds. This can be quite a tanky shield. And even if it gets one shot, it can still block those big single hit attacks that a lot of bosses do and save your team from taking any damage. The obvious downside is that it only affects herself and other fire units, so this is very much a squad specific thing. It's also hard to actually time those big attacks that you're trying to block. However, even if you don't have all the fire squad, it can be a useful skill for keeping your main DPS units healthy. That will also often be the target of boss attacks, particularly if you aren't running much healing in your squad. It also increases all fire allies' attack damage by 48% for 10 seconds. This is a ridiculous buff when paired with units like Modernia or Asuka. You basically just get 50% more damage during the fight. And of course, she nukes the entire field for 990% of her final attack. This is one of the most powerful screen wipes in the game, and in some cases, literally the most powerful. So as far as general use against campaign stages and random bosses, even without elemental damage, both Asuka and Rei will perform pretty well. When compared to Red Hood against a single target boss that neither have elemental damage or advantage on, Asuka is right behind her. So very impressive results even in that type of scenario. Rei will shine more against mobs because of her screen wipe, and when compared with Scarlet, when neither have elemental damage, Rei actually does even more damage than Scarlet. I also did test with the All Fire Dream Team against stages with ads and a boss, and both outdamage Modernia pretty consistently. Now, if you have a single target, Modernia tends to creep ahead in damage, and depending on how long it takes to clear the stages and how many burst cycles you go through, you can get more or less damage bursting with Modernia instead of one of the Eva girls, but in most cases, I would have Modernia off burst. Against mobs, Rei will outdamage Asuka almost all other units when properly built. I did a lot of tests on both the 1 minute and 30 second and the 3 minute shooting range and boss stages and interception. Against a boss, Asuka will outperform Rei, and if it's against Wind in particular, she will outdamage pretty much any other unit except for Alice. As a reminder, I have all of these units I'm talking about with maxed out level 10 skills, max limit breaks, and nearly optimal overload lines. They scale really well with investment, and if you are at a lower level of investment, some other units like Modernia will start out at a better performance. Okay, let's talk about squads. As far as building squads, Leader, Crown, Asuka, Rei, Modernia is a really OP team, particularly when fighting wind enemies, of course. It will decimate the raid boss or any other wind campaign stages. Although in reality, you probably don't want to use this in the solo raid because you want to split up your fire damage as well as the extra shield damage and pierce effects. Remember that Rei will also apply a shield, so Asuka and Rei will synergize even without a defender. Naga is also a fantastic addition if you want to swap out any one of those burst 3s in that squad. It's the same basic OP Naga Crown combo that we've seen before, and they are all really good at core hits as well. Crown gives the shield status to Asuka for her skill 2 buff. Tia also activates that buff, so the standard Tia Naga combo is great too. For raids, Asuka will usually be best served with the schoolgirls and volume. For your second burst 3, you can use 2B, although a lot of people might not have 2B, so you can also use Maxwell or even Red Hood or Ein. Now, Rei works really well with the bunnies and Modernia for your burst 1. I'd probably always go with Leader. You can also use Rei with Crown, Leader, Modernia, and either Alice or Maxwell for fast charging. Summer Rosanna is kind of a sleeper pick that works in this comp instead of Crown too. But the easier squad for most people will definitely be with bunnies. It's just a very synergistic with lots of max ammo and durability. So think about these kind of setups when you are making your raid comps. As a quick reminder, most people watching my videos aren't subscribed, so if you are enjoying the video, consider a sub. It will really help out the channel. All right, so here's some quick tips when fighting the massive object or angel. Do not shoot the red circles with Asuka. Normally you'd want to use an MG or sniper anyway for those QTE things, but even if you can do a decent job with ARs in the QTE, remember Asuka has a terrible hit rate that will make you fail. And if you're using Rei or any other MG, make sure you look for that little yellow diamond to aim at right before the red circles spawn, so you don't go through the white circles. This is particularly relevant for mobile users over PC players. Make sure you have a fire unit on each squad so you can shoot through the elemental shield it brings up in a fight. Technically, you can ignore it and tank the hit with most squads, but you will miss out on a lot of damage just waiting for the shield to go away. It doesn't even have to be a strong unit either. Even a support like Double D can easily clear it. Make sure you also split up Rei and Asuka so you can give the shield damage buff to 2 squads. This is really important at the beginning of the fight. A lot of people probably don't even notice it, but all that damage at the beginning will be absorbed by the boss's shield. For the squads with the Eva girls, without the Eva girls, use Pierce units. Mari will help with both of these effects, so if you have her, make sure you put her on the 3rd squad, probably with Red Hood. I'm currently in the top 1% ranking and can definitely get an even higher score now that I've completed all of my testing. This is also on mobile, so unfortunately my numbers are a little nerfed compared to PC players, but having invested Asuka and Rei is really helping. Okay, so as far as equipment and overloads go, Asuka wants the Resilience Cube. Fast reload really ramps up her damage. Some people will even combine her with Privity for this reason. Your second option would be Bastion Cube. In theory, the hit rate cube might be your 3rd choice to try and compensate for her abysmal accuracy when out of burst, but it just doesn't even make a difference. When overloading, lean into her elemental damage. 4 lines of elemental damage is best, and her DPS can go through the roof. Remember, Asuka is a specialist. Make her best at what she was made for. Second priority should be attack lines, and after that, max ammo. Crit rate might be 4th. I have seen some wild crit teams with mass, but use that at your own risk. Rei should have the Bastion Cube above all else. This is by far the best option for her. The Assault Cube for her hit rate is a potential secondary option alternative for laser focused core hits. For overload lines, I would also go for elemental damage on Rei. This is less important for her than it is for Asuka, but I still think it's the highest priority. Attack and ammo are probably tied for 2nd most important. Ammo, maybe even slightly more than attack. Okay, so let's talk about Arena briefly. You guys know I'm not that into it anymore, but Rei is a surprising breath of fresh air for the meta. There were some other false dawns with other units that could potentially wipe out enemy teams, but they just kind of never really worked. Rei can actually be quite viable. She requires a little bit of buffing to make sure she can actually wipe the enemy team, but this is not hard to do. Consider using Winter Anne, Red Hood, Noir, or Drake. Just be careful about fighting units that trigger off of number of hits, such as the old Jackal Emma combo. She will also need a lot of burst gen help from rocket launchers to burst quickly. All that said, she is the only other unit than Scarlet that I found that will reliably wipe the enemy team nowadays. That's something that Privity, Kilo, or Maid Privity just struggle to do. As far as Asuka, just don't use her. Nikkes don't have cores to shoot. They also don't affect elemental damage in Arena, and ARs have terrible burst generation. Alright, let me know what questions you have or any suggestions for Asuka and Rei. I always like reading what the community has to say. A Mari video is coming next, and in the meantime, check out my collection/favorite item guide in the link below. Subscribe for more Nikke videos, and I'll catch you guys on stream.